Hi, neighbor. My voice is still not 100%, but it is getting better. This hiccup has forced me to take a brief sabbatical from creating new content for you. I promised you real and raw conversations, but I didn't have this in mind. This setback has given me the chance to practice a principle called the obstacle is the way. This obstacle is a way for me to revisit some of the foundational themes of this podcast. Today, I would like to share with you a special encore episode where we'll circle back to a conversation I had with my son Jonny about one of the tools he learned in residential. This tool was instrumental in Jonny liking himself again, and this tool is something I have adopted in my life and encourage you to practice too. It's journaling. Journaling continues to help Jonny shape his life and navigate its ups and downs. So whether you're hearing this for the first time or revisiting it, I'm excited for you to dive back into the insights and the transformative strategies of journaling. Hope and healing are on the way. How does it change your mind? Can you explain that a little more?
Well, after you do it, like I said, for a certain amount of time and you get into that comfortable practice with it, it starts to become your natural release. So instead of, how when I was a kid, I would blow up and, punch holes in the wall or whatnot, instead, now as an adult, I can sit down, type out some words on my computer or put some pen on some paper and, 20, 30, 40 minutes later, I'm good to go.
Did you finally realize your dream of having a family, only to have your happily ever after turn into a nightmare? Are you constantly second guessing your parenting, anxious about whether your child will make good choices and remain faithful? Have you neglected yourself to the point that it's taken a personal toll on you? Hi, neighbor. Welcome to Anchors of Encouragement. I'm Tim Maudlin, husband, adoptive parent, disciple of Christ, and ambassador of encouragement. I too felt the joy of having a family of my own, and I wish we could be like other families. But I found myself up late at night, anxious about my child's future and asking myself, why is this happening? Am I a failure as a parent? It was only by grabbing a lifeline from God and my friends that I was able to navigate the challenges of adoptive life. And now I can't wait to share everything I've learned with you. My mission is to be your friend and encourager, to throw adoptive parents a lifeline and offer biblical encouragement as you partner with Christ, providing stability as your anchor when you need it the most. If you're ready for real and raw talk with strategies and insights that lead to peace beyond comprehension, so you not only survive but thrive in life's storms, this podcast is for you. Hope and healing are on the way. Joining me today is my son Jonny, and we're going to talk about journaling. I've mentioned to you in previous episodes that I learned about journaling from him. When he was in residential treatment, the therapist there made him journal. I've also shared the story that when my wife was homeschooling him, he did not like to write. In fact, he would start crying about that when he had to write. But while he was at residential treatment, this was something that they required him to do. And as we get started with our conversation today, can you tell us a little bit about the journaling that you did there, why you did it, and we'll just start the conversation that way, and I'll be asking you some more questions in a little bit. But thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. When I started journaling at treatment, I originally didn't want to do it. I didn't like doing it because, like you said, from a really young age, I never liked writing. I always found it kind of boring and never really enjoyed it. And I was always that kid that never wanted to do anything he didn't enjoy. One of the staff members that had a lot more pull on me, I would say. He was one of the ones that really led me through that program. But he talked to me one day, and I had told him that I was into music and I had been making music for a while. He came to me with the idea of looking at journaling as more of put it into a song instead of quote unquote journaling. Because a lot of it is you tell kids to journal, they might not necessarily want to, because how society today is, that's not really something kids do nowadays. So they might look at you all funny. Sometimes if you don't look at it necessarily as journaling and look at it as something that is different but the same, it becomes a lot easier, and it becomes a lot, well, yeah, a lot easier to put emotions into it than just, writing sentences on sentences of pure nothing.
That does make sense, because if you can come up with a simple prompt to give you direction, journaling becomes much easier. And as you said, thinking of journaling as writing lyrics to a song, that's perfect. I've shared this as well, that my initial idea about journaling was a teenage girl writing in a diary.
Exactly.
And until I found out how it was helping you, I really didn't have any reason to try it. And I remember when you first went to treatment, you were really angry. And I talked to one of your therapists after a few weeks, because I saw that your eyes were starting to brighten up again. And she told me the reason that you were happier was because you were journaling. And that just threw me for a loop, because I said, you don't write. You didn't write. And yet you were writing. And I asked her to explain to me what was going on. And I remember, and I've shared this quote many times on the show, she told me, you can think a feeling, you can speak a feeling, but if you want to touch a feeling, you need to write. Now, did she share that with you, or did some other people say something even a little bit different to you about journaling, and why you would use that as part of your therapy?
I think every therapist at some point in time alluded to that, because it's true. And that's why, I'm going to bring it back to the music standpoint of it. That's why music was such a good outlet for me to use journaling for, because music is, pretty much pure emotion. So when you're taking all those emotions out of you and then putting it into something else to release it, it makes it a whole lot easier, and it definitely brings a weight off of you. I can feel a difference when I sit down to write, a song, or, some lyrics that I come up with or whatever. I can tell a feeling before and after that.
Mm-hmm. I've said also, there's no wrong way to journal. There's only the right way to journal, and that's WRITE. You have to write. And whether you're writing song lyrics, or you're doing copy work where you're copying down a favorite quote, or maybe it's an affirmation that resonates with you, or maybe it's even you're copying down song lyrics to a song that really speaks to you. The process of putting pen to paper has a way of touching those feelings and the emotions that are inside you. Now, you said you like to do this by writing song lyrics. How are you feeling prior to those times when you sit down to write out song lyrics? How do you feel?
Well, a lot of times, if you look at a lot of the lyrics I've written, they're all very heavy. I usually don't tend to write anything that isn't significant. And that's because those significant things are usually, what's weighing on my mind the most at the time. I honestly, I don't even think I can describe the difference I feel, because when you sit down, you have a real heavy heart. The second I get up and take that pen off the paper, it's totally different. I don't want to say you feel, brand new, but it's definitely close.
Well, another way to think about it is you're releasing those heavy feelings. Would that make sense? Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay, by writing them down. Good. And that's the idea, is that I've done this personally for myself. And since I watched how it helped you, then I've taken it as a personal practice for myself, and I do it every day. I mean, I was up at 5 o'clock or so this morning journaling, just writing down some things. And it's different every day. Sometimes it'll be expressing some feelings that I'm experiencing at the moment. Other times I might copy something down that resonates with me, or it might be just making a list of things I want to do. I never have a set pattern for what I'm going to write about. I just make sure I write because I know and have seen how it has helped you. In fact, while we're talking here, I have one of the bracelets that you gave me from your time there, and it's the green one that says introspection. You remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a lot about journaling. It's about looking inside and touching those feelings that you're going through. So introspection is a big part of the journaling process. Can we circle back a little bit to when you first began treatment? Tell me, when you first started journaling, what were you using to journal?
I was using a single sheet of paper at a time at first with the inside of a pen. So the little part that holds the ink and the tip, that's all we got. So, and then a couple weeks into it, I ended up finally getting a 25-cent Walmart binder.
Okay, so what you're telling me is it doesn't take a lot of fancy things to journal because you were using the tube that held the ink and a piece of paper, right?
Yeah.
Now you can get the fancy binders or the fancy journals, you can get the fancy pens, but really, if you have an ink pen and a piece of paper, even a pencil, you're good to go. The main thing is to do it. I want to take you back to a conversation. Now, it's been a few years ago, and I was wanting to understand more about journaling and what you had done. Now, you had graduated from the program, and we were encouraging you to continue journaling. And I said, you know that this works for you, that it helps you to touch those feelings and release those negative emotions that you have inside you. And I said, why don't you do it more often? And do you remember what you told me?
Yeah, it's easier to blow up than it is to journal.
Yeah. And the thing about this, when you're doing the kind of introspection work that you were doing, that's some deep stuff. That's really deep things that you're uncovering. And you were putting words to feelings that you really had never tried to put words to, and feelings that went all the way back to before you were born. And that was the one thing that was interesting about this process, is that journaling helped you to touch into or tap into those feelings that you really didn't understand. Your therapists were really good to help you navigate through that and show you how journaling could be one of the tools that you could use to help you release those negative feelings and to feel better about yourself. Because I remember one of your therapists telling me that she said, you're learning to like yourself. Mom and I, when we heard that, it tore us up because we didn't realize that. But journaling was helping you to like yourself. And so it's a really valuable tool to use. So you say you like to journal today. It's become a practice with you. How often do you do it?
I try to do it at least 3 times a week. A lot of that too is because I still am pretty heavily involved in music, so I do still write a lot for that. But it's also just because, especially with, how the world is nowadays, it's real easy to get stressed out and it's real easy to get overwhelmed. And I find that to be the easiest way to deal with it.
Do you have any set time you try to do it, or set place, or are you still
It's
going
kind of
with pen
just
to paper?
as most of the time, yeah, it's pen to paper. I do a lot of work on my computer too. With the timing of it, no, it's kind of just one of those things that when you need to get it out, and your body will tell you. You'll just kind of after you do it for long enough, it kind of becomes one of those things. You know how runners get runner's highs. It's kind of one of those situations. I don't want to say you get a high off of it, but it becomes something that your mind tells you that you need to do.
How does it change your mind? Can you explain that a little more?
Well, after you do it, like I said, for a certain amount of time and you get into that comfortable practice with it, it starts to become your natural release. So instead of, how when I was a kid, I would blow up and, punch holes in the wall or whatnot, instead, now as an adult, I can sit down, type out some words on my computer or put some pen on some paper and, 20, 30, 40 minutes later, I'm good to go.
Now, let me ask you this, because you talked about writing out the heavy things. Do you ever take the chance or opportunity to write down things you're grateful for?
Yeah, absolutely. With journaling, it's kind of like you kind of have to do a pros and cons with it, if that makes sense. You know, it's not always just, you talk about the heavy and deep things and the things that are weighing on you. You could journal about, your wedding day. You could journal about, I have just got this job promotion. Journaling isn't about getting out the negative feelings. It's about getting out the feelings that you don't feel like you can express to somebody else. And it's not even just the feelings you can't express to somebody else, because a lot of feelings that you touch will still, it's not the same saying it to a person as it is putting it on paper.
So as we wrap up this episode on journaling, what would you say to someone who has been hesitant in the past? What would you say to encourage them to take up this practice like you've taken up?
I think, kind of like we've been saying this whole time, you just kind of have to find, something that speaks to you, if that makes sense, whether it be songwriting or like you do, write it on a piece of paper and go and burn it. Realize that the paper isn't going to judge you. So you aren't going to tell that paper anything, anything new. I think give it a chance and you'll really see the benefit of it.
That's good advice. I've seen how it worked in your life, and I'm glad you're still doing it. And I want to encourage you to keep doing it. And I never would have gotten into it had it not been for you. And so even though those were more difficult times in our family, there's been something positive come out of it. And I think it's been something I know has helped me, and I know it's helped you. And if it can help other people, then I really want to encourage you to take up this practice and give it a try. Again, there's no wrong way to do it. There's only the right way to do it. It could be a scrap of paper. It could be in a nice journal. You can text yourself some thought. There's apps you can use. Just whatever way you find to do it, just make sure you're doing it, because it will help you. It will make you feel better. And it might even make you like yourself, because that's what happened to you. So thanks so much for joining me, Jonny. And I want to encourage you to keep doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Journaling has made a big difference in Jonny's life. It's made a big difference in my life. And I really believe that if you give it a chance, it can make a big difference in your life too. That's all for this episode. I want to thank you again for joining me. Until next time, this is Tim, encouraging you to do what you can now. If this podcast has given you the courage and confidence to face storms in your life, the number one way you can thank me is to leave a written review on Apple Podcasts. Tell a friend about the show. Take a screenshot of this episode and share it in your Instagram stories and tag me at Tim Maudlin. You can also connect with me in my Facebook group, Anchors of Encouragement. So until next time, this is Tim encouraging you to do what you can now.